Hello and welcome to In Our Community. I'm your host, Vidya Pradhan. Today's episode is the second of a two-parter. If you haven't seen the first show, I highly recommend you go and search it out. These two shows are about genealogy and one amateur genealogist's search for the secrets of her family. First, let's meet our guest, Debby Slyker. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, thank you for having me back.
Welcome back. Debbie has been working on her family tree for years using online sites and offsite records like census data, yearbooks, and family lore. In 2017, when DNA matching became available, she not only took her own test, she persuaded members of her family to do so too. And that's when she discovered that the father on her birth certificate was not her biological father. As you can imagine, this led to a ripple effect of emotions on the family and set her on a multi-year journey to discover her biological dad. In the previous episode, we talked about how she became interested in genealogy, how she built her family tree, what methods she used and recommends, and how the search affected her and her family. We also began talking about the search for her father. In this episode, we will go straight to the main mystery and learn from Debbie how she methodically eliminated various candidates to arrive at a short list of candidates. With neither her mother nor her birth certificate father in the picture anymore, the search has been particularly challenging. So let's talk to Debbie and find out if she was successful. I can't wait. So Debbie, how about we start with the short list of candidates? Maybe that picture first up?
Yes, I think the picture is up there. And you'll see that I have three potential fathers. And that's a picture of me in the middle. These are all our high school pictures taken from yearbooks. There is a question mark because I don't have any close enough match to definitively say who my father was. However, through process of elimination, I feel very comfortable that I know who the one is.
So how about we start at the beginning and tell us a little bit about these three candidates and how they came to your attention.
Okay. I'll talk more about them when I go to the board behind me. When I was looking at who my father could be, I had to look at age. I had to look at geographic location. Obviously, conception has to take place within a certain geographical location. I looked at, my mother was a secretary, so I thought somebody that had a 2-year relationship with somebody that resulted in 2 children, myself and my younger sister. I think that they had to have either been working close together or seen each other on a regular basis.
So let me interrupt here because for people who didn't watch the show or just joining us here, let's give a little background of your siblings, which ones you're related to, which ones you aren't, and where you were located, where your family was located.
At the time of my birth, we were living in Wheeling, West Virginia. I have an older brother who is the son of my birth certificate father. He is now my half brother. I have a younger sister who is 13 months younger than me, and she turned out to be a full sibling of mine.
So the person who could be your biological dad had to be in the vicinity of Wheeling, Virginia, at the period that you and your sister were born, which was 1950 and 1952.
Right. Wheeling, West Virginia.
Wheeling, West Virginia.
Right.
Okay, continue.
So then what I had to do is, I know we talked previously about centimorgans, and centimorgans is the relationship closeness to you. The higher the centimorgan, the closer relationship to you. I don't have anybody that is in the sibling range outside of my younger sister or half sibling range. So I had to find the DNA matches, and I plotted all of them out that were closer than fourth cousins. I plotted them all out, and I found the common ancestor based on centimorgans and familia matches were my great-great-grandparents. And if you'd like, I'd like to go to the board now to start showing that.
Let's do that.
I'm going to tip this down a little bit so you can, or up a little bit so you can see it. Now, I'm not sure how much you can read on this, but that isn't really even that important.
I think what we want to know is the process.
Right.
and some of the amazing revelations that came out of it.
Right.
So let's, yeah.
Well, the process is when you start at the top. Now, everybody above, this is William and Nancy, and they were born in the 1830s. These are my great great grandparents on my father's side. My mother's side is pretty firm. That's another story. So when you have a starting point, I had to first look at their 7 children, and then I had to build a family tree for not only them, but their children and sometimes their grandchildren. So that took a lot of research. Where were they? What did they do? How many children did they have? So I looked at all of those, and now their children were born in between 1855 and 1870. So still not of the age that could be my father. My mother was born in 1929. She was 22 when I was born. Okay, so we looked at the different their children, and you can see each one of these columns has their children in it. They were a very prolific family, and I'm going to say this, they were very female heavy. So the first thing I did was I went through and I eliminated the females. So I'm not going to eliminate her because I want to talk about these later on. But then, so I went through and I eliminated them. I also eliminated people that didn't have any children. So I went through and I said, okay, no children, no children, no children, or one died at age 1. So before vaccines, children didn't live that long. So no children. Okay, and I just wanted to point out, this is Beatrice. She was born in 1885 and lived to 1944. She never married, she never had children, and that could be because she lived through 2 wars, a pandemic, and a depression. We have to think about what these people went through back then, and that's part of the wonderful journey of the ancestry, is to learn what your family did and where your strong genes come from.
These personal stories make them very real.
Yes, very real. I mean, and there's some fascinating stories in my family. You don't have enough airtime to go over all those stories. So then we go over, so that was Amanda. Now she also had a son, Amanda had a son, Harry, who had the daughter that we eliminated, and 2 sons. Now these 2 sons, I kept them on there as a possibility at first. One was a baker. They were in the general area within a half an hour, and one worked in a print shop. I don't think my mother would have had contact from them. So I eliminated them. So Amanda's out. Now this is Lenora. Lenora had 2 girls who never had children, and she had a son who had a daughter. So they were eliminated. And each one of those facts I'm telling you was a research project. So
exactly.
Hours. So then we had.
What were the things you used for your research project? What were your tools?
Well, I used the various DNA sites that I'm on. I have access to research on Ancestry. I have newspapers.com, and that has a lot of those that information, and just some detective work. But a lot of that I did find on Ancestry. So that's my search site. Each site has their own search site. So then the next one is William. And William had a daughter, Elva, and she had 2 sons that could possibly be, but they lived in Washington, Pennsylvania, which was a good 8 hours away. This, in 1950 and 1952, we didn't have expressways. We didn't have the transportation that we have available today. My older brother was 2 years old. I have to think my mother could not be that far away from home for very long. So he was eliminated. They were eliminated. Then we had William, who happened to be in Florida. Then we had Martha and Dorothy. These 3 people died very young, at very young ages, before childbearing. Okay, and then we had Patricia. I want to point out Patricia. I'm actually in touch with her. She's living in a assisted living facility, and she is a DNA match on my side of the family, but far away. And So I do talk to her from time to time. She had COVID and never had a single, symptom. So this
Good
is
to know and helpful.
good to know. So this is Bessie. She had 3 daughters. She wasn't any help to me. Now I'm going to keep Eva Mary up here because, oh no, Eva Mary had all sons. Clifford, Tom, well, she had a daughter, Jane, but she died young. But she had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sons, all possible candidates. With the problem was they were all in California when I was conceived. So they were eliminated. Okay, then we have Eva. She had 3 sons. The third one died at age 1. The 2 sons had girls. Remember when I said girls dominated this family? And you should know that my son has 4 girls. Okay, then we have John, who had Thomas, Lester, and John. And John never had children. Lester had a daughter, and Thomas had a daughter. So the Y chromosome kind of died out there, if you know what I'm saying. Then we had Anna Violet, and she had Edward, Robert, and Donald. And we will come back to them because they are viable candidates. And I want you to know that their mother, Anna Violet, lived to be 104.
Good genes.
Good genes. Love them. Then you had Ethel, and she had a son, Martin, who was in Illinois at the time of my conception, and he and a daughter, Anna. So they were out. And then Mildred died when she was 1 year old. So coming back over to this side of the board.
So who's left on the right side of the board?
Okay, on the right side of the board is Edward and Robert. And I'm going to scratch out Donald because he was very young. He was still in high school.
Okay.
So I'm hoping I can scratch him out. But if you look on the pictures of the fathers, this is Edward. He's in the top left. The top right is Robert. Edward is worked either at an insurance agency or had an insurance agency, and that was something that was in the family line. The next one down is Robert. He was a Major League Baseball pitcher. Actually went to the series 1 year. And so these 2 were still possibly viable, but I will tell you, they lived in Pittsburgh or outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which was a good hour by today's standard to drive. I don't even think my mother had a car in 1950. I think she took the bus or the train. And like I say, with a 2-year-old at home and a husband that was not very reliable, my birth certificate father was not very reliable.
So Debbie, now that you're working on the left side of the screen of your chart, could you move it so that we can see you again?
I will. So as you may have guessed, how's that? Is this good?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as you may have guessed, we're down to the family of Elena. I don't want to say last name. So she had the 2 sons, but they lived in Northeast Ohio. And Northeast Ohio, from where I was a good 8 hours, possibly 9. So once again, they weren't viable. Then we had her sister Geneva, who had no children. Of the remaining children, Myrtle, Eva Matilda, and Ruth, Myrtle and Ruth had daughters, but I'm going to leave them up there for a reason. The son of Eva Matilda, and I'm saying Matilda a lot and you'll see why, had 1 son born in 1912, which would have made him 39 at the time of my conception. He lived just across the river from Wheeling and had offices in Wheeling. I don't know if my mother worked for him or she did work for somebody that he was over, but he was high in the trade union and would often even entertain presidents. So he was a man of influence and power. And you know how we women love men of influence and power. So here was this beautiful small town woman, aged 22 years old, that worked in his office or worked somewhere where he would see her on a regular basis. And I can absolutely believe that they might have had a relationship, especially since my birth certificate father was not somebody that you would probably want to be married to. Now, the other thing about the name Eva Matilda, I wanted to tell you at one point, and this is the only clue my sister and I had about this. My mother once told my sister Susan that she almost named her Pauline Matilda. Pauline was my grandmother's mother's name, and Eva Matilda was Wilson's mother's name.
That's a big clue.
I think that's a big clue. Now, and when I was plotting out my DNA, and I'm going to show you some other pictures too. If you want to put up the next slide, which is the children and grandchildren. Okay, you'll see in the top left-hand corner, that's the ball player and my youngest grandson. There are similarities, but remember, this is all my family. Everybody in here is my family. The one below him is another grandson with the insurance agent. The one to the far right is my oldest granddaughter and Wilson. And I think you can see there's some very, very close resemblance there, even probably more so than mine. So anyways, when I was plotting out the DNA matches, okay, just because I don't have DNA matches for all of these people, I only have matches for people that have taken them. And just because I don't have a DNA match for somebody else, it just may mean they haven't taken the DNA test. Because there's over probably 5,000 DNA matches in this family that I have, but they're distant. But Dorothy had a son who had a son, and that son is a DNA match to me. Ruth's daughter Barbara has the closest match that we have in centimorgans, and it falls right in the second cousin or first cousin range. Now, when you're looking at centimorgans, there's a few things that can throw it off. That's why they give you a range. If you have people who marry, like brothers who marry sisters in a family, you're going to get a double, like a double first cousin. So that makes the centimorgans go a little higher. If you have a half relationship, then the centimorgans are going to be lower. So all of these, I have several, my closest matches, with the exception of one, and I think that's a result of a double first cousin. My closest matches go to Wilson. That with all of the other clues, I believe that he is a father. Now, I won't know until somebody agrees to do a DNA test. And he does have 3 living daughters.
That was my next question. So, what now that you think that this is the likeliest possibility, what's your next step?
Well, I have found the 3 daughters, and I've actually found the siblings to all of the potential fathers. I'd like you to also see the next slide, which is the one of my sister. This is my sister on the, would be the left. She is next to the daughter of the baseball player. And I just wanted to point this out because my sister has strawberry blonde hair and green eyes. Nobody in my family, my mother's family, has anything but blue eyes. I mean, it's dominant. I have blue eyes, but according to my DNA traits, which I also subscribe to, I'm supposed to have brown eyes. I have 7 grandchildren, 3 have blue eyes, 3 have brown eyes, and 1 has hazel, which is a combination of brown and green.
So those are recessive traits that pop up here and there, I suppose.
Right.
But I mean, the thing is, as you pointed out earlier, they're all your family. It's just a question of how distantly you're related to them, so long as you all have a common ancestor.
Right. And you don't inherit things equally. For example, I think that my sister Susan inherited a lot more of the father's side because the closest match, he goes by Buggy. That's obviously a made-up name. The closest match to her, he is the closest match, and on her, she came in at 283 centimorgans, which is the highest of all. And I really had to find him because I was only at I think 116 or 118. But I think her coloring and different things about her, I think that she inherited more from dad. And so we went with her highest centimorgan, which is fine. And
so I have a funny question. You put up those pictures of the three potential fathers, and they're obviously black and white pictures because they came from yearbooks from very, very long ago. But now that you have all this information, can you, like, if you had to do an identity kit or, you know, a visualization of what he might have looked like, do you have a fair idea?
Well, actually I do, and I'll tell you where I got that information. Because it was around the time of the world wars, men had to sign up for drafts. Their draft cards, their ID cards are posted online, and on each card it gives you their eye color, their skin color, and their hair color, and their height.
Wow.
So I know that Wilson was 5'8.5". My mother was 5'7". I know that he had brown hair and light skin. I know he had blue eyes.
Wow, so that you get a really comprehensive picture.
Mm-hmm. Edward, the insurance agent, had hazel eyes, which made me think that he was probably a good potential. And I haven't completely ruled him out, like I say, until I get
DNA samples.
DNA. So
are you going to approach these family members? Are they alive?
They are alive, and I have sent letters out, and I'm going to send more. I have met some of my wonderful cousins in this line. I have had some people that have helped me a great deal. They've given me family information. One of the potential fathers originally took the DNA test, not his son took the DNA test. He was convinced it was his father because I guess his father had quite the ladies' man reputation. As a matter of fact, his mother is still alive, and he said, yeah, she's probably your sister. But it turned out I wasn't. I was just a cousin. And I've had other people who are even better at genealogy that are in the family.
Has the reaction generally been positive from the family? Have you had any hostile reactions?
Yes. Half and half. Some have refused to even answer me. I had one person that I was contacting through messaging on Ancestry, and she actually blocked my messages. But I'm not giving up. I have all of their addresses. I even sent a DNA kit to one.
Okay. This has been a fairly expensive hobby.
It is. But I count it as a hobby. I don't really have any other hobbies other than some writing, but I think I'm going to continue doing this no matter what. And I sent Christmas cards to some of them last year, and I'll probably do that again this year because you never know. You know, it was a shock to me, but I would like to take into consideration their feelings because the youngest daughter of Wilson is 10 years older than me. And then she has two older sisters. And you know, you go your whole life, and I know that I felt this too, believing one thing, and then all of a sudden this person who you've never met, you've never had any contact, comes along and says, we're sisters. You know, my half sister.
It's shocking.
Yeah.
I think we have just a couple of minutes left, so I want to leave this with you to tell us if you're a lay person watching this show and really curious about doing this, can you just tell us in a minute or so how they should go about starting the process?
Yes.
And yeah.
Yes. I would first of all decide to take a test. Decide which company you're going to go to. You can get reviews. I would look at YouTube's. There's a lot of YouTube videos about DNA. You need to decide if you want to do this because once you get that DNA test back, you're in. So
you're hooked. You're addicted.
And I will also say that I know I talk about Ancestry a lot, but I actually took 3 DNA tests and uploaded my raw DNA to 2 other sites. But Ancestry has a good base for research. And you can, they have tutorials on all of them to learn how to do things. Even GEDmatch has a tutorial. And So, and you can be as private or as public as you want. That's your opportunity. They allow you
And
to.
the thing is, with more and more people uploading their DNA, the DNA is even being used to find like people who have been convicted of crimes, or people who have been, possibly guilty of crimes and stuff. So I
Right.
think, given that a lot of people are uploading DNA, a pretty clearer, no, the picture of your family becomes clearer and clearer as time goes by.
Right.
As more and more
And GenMatch is that site that I uploaded my raw DNA to, and Cece Moore is a genealogist, and she has a show called The Genetic Detective. And if you're thinking about doing this, that's a good show to watch also.
All right.
But
This is fascinating. I think we could talk for hours about this, but we're just about running out of time. So that was a fascinating episode. Debbie, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your amazing journey.
So onward and upward.
Onward and upward, and keep searching, and keep finding those stories. And I hope at the end of the day there is a book out with which chronicles your adventures, and I'll be the first in line to get it.
I'll send you an autographed copy. How's that?
Oh, you bet.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope Debbie's experience has inspired you to solve some mysteries of your own. And that's all we have. That's all the time we have for this show. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Jim, behind the camera. And this is your host, Vidya Pradhan, saying namaste and goodbye.